has been pretty effective at defending our Second Amendment rights. These recent statements notwithstanding.
Yeah, and I want to point this out, folks. If you're a member of any of these organizations, and I hope you are, Gun Owners of America, Second Amendment Foundation, National Rifle Association, all this. But the question I have for you is pointed, direct, and a simple one to answer. Would you rather have a Kamala Harris regime in charge, Cam? And I don't think anybody in their right mind would say, yeah, because of what Trump just said or what Noam just said. So I want to talk about both of them in particular, then we'll get to Cash. Here's what Kristi Noem had to say that raised everybody's feathers. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts. I don't know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign. That's what she said. Now, farther down the piece, I guess she's walking that back. I would assume it's a walk back, okay? Because she made it very clear that, and let me go see if I can find this because I'm scrolling through this in real time with you. Let me get to it because Kristi Noem, her walk back on that was, and I'm looking, it looks like I'm having trouble finding it, but what she said was, essentially was, of course we support the Second Amendment, of course we support First Amendment, of course we support the Second Amendment, but that's not what it sounded like you said. Look, you if you're talking out both sides of your mouth, you got to come out and clarify this. I've not heard any clarification that's been on par with what I would expect when you had Trump, Noam, and Cash. Now, I want to point this out about Donald Trump. This is my personal opinion, my gut view, and I want your thoughts on this. Trump speaks off the cuff. It's just what he does. And when he says, you can't bring a gun to a protest, you can't do that. Trump is speaking in platitudes. He's speaking rhetorically. He's saying in his mind, why do you take that gun and then get involved with law enforcement? You can't do that. I think that's what Trump meant. Do you think I'm on the right path with that?
I think you are on the right path with that comment. But, Trump also talked about, I think, bringing a gun and 2 magazines, really bad stuff, he said. And you're right. He is talking off the cuff. And so you have to take that into account. Kristi Noem probably was as well. Kash Patel was as well. Mm-hmm. But again, you talk about the lack of clarification, right? And I've been arguing with people on social media all week saying, with people saying, clearly this is what they meant. They didn't mean what you say. Listen, I'm quoting them.
Right, sure.
If that's not what they meant, then it's up to them to clarify what they meant. But otherwise, you got to take their comments at face value.
Of course you do. Let me jump in real fast because, excuse me, her office said, of course, Secretary Noem supports every American's Second Amendment right. Americans have the right to show up to a protest with a gun, but you must follow the law. That's not what Kristi Noem said.
No, it's not. And, when we talk about follow the law, I think we got to be really clear here, right? If we're talking about obstructing a police investigation, that's one thing. If we're talking about, Alex Pretty showing up and he didn't have his permit on him, listen, that's a $25 citation in Minnesota. Right. And typically, I talked with Rob Dorr from Minnesota Gun Owners Law Center. He says, typically what happens is if you don't have your permit, you tell the officer, they look it up. And because they can. And once they see that your permit's valid, no worries. You don't even get the citation. I've had people, we've seen people, conservatives say or suggest that because he didn't have his permit, that was some sort of major crime. We've had people who call themselves Second Amendment absolutists say that. And, listen, I'm sorry. You can't say, the Second Amendment is my permission slip. Oh, but if you didn't have your permission slip, if you didn't have your, permission slip from the state, well, then, anything bad can happen to you. I think that's a disingenuous argument.
It is.
If we want to talk about interrupting a law enforcement operation, that's one thing. But I've seen a lot of disingenuous arguments this week.
Yeah, I have too, and it's a little bit disturbing. Here, I'll close out with, we'll go to the break with this. Further from Kristi Noem's office, our law enforcement officers were conducting an operation to arrest Jose Huerta Chuma, whose criminal history includes domestic assault to intentionally inflict bodily harm, disorderly conduct, and driving without a valid license. This individual chose to commit a federal crime while armed, obstructing law enforcement in the course of an active investigation. Incredibly dangerous. That's a very true statement. When we come back, we'll get some more clarification from Cam Edwards, and we'll cover a couple other things that he wrote about, including Giffords. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
The
following segment of Armed American Radio is proudly being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Help us defend freedom by visiting nra.org/AAR and join today. Welcome back to the show. Yeah, guys, we need your help with the National Rifle Association. Please join us at nra.org/AAR, nra.org/AAR. If you can give us 1 year, that would be great. If you can give us 3, 5, or even life, all of the information is there for you on how to do just that at nra.org/AAR. Take advantage of those discounts over there. Put that NRA card in your wallet and support us. We need all of the assistance. And what you're getting ready to hear from Cam in a piece that he wrote about Giffords will be pretty much self-explanatory if you value your rights and your freedoms, your liberties, in particular your gun rights as it pertains to this broadcast. Cam Edwards, welcome back, brother. And Cam, I want to make this statement to you while we're live on the air. I know we've had some issues with the phones from the network. It's on your end, on the network end. Power through it if you can. You're coming across loud and clear to our listeners and to our radio station. So I just want you to know that, okay? You sound great. So I apologize if I'm getting any fuzzy connection there, okay? We'll take care of that for you. Cam, I do have a statement from the FBI, and I'm going to go ahead and put this FBI statement up on the screen if I can. Let me pull you off and put this one up. The FBI did respond, and FBI made the following statement. This is part of the article that you appeared in on Fox News. This FBI will always defend Americans' First Amendment right to free speech as well as their Second Amendment right to bear arms, whether attending protests or otherwise. What we do not support is those who target, attack, or impede law enforcement lawfully executing their duties. That was from Ben Williamson, the Assistant Director of the FBI Office of Public Affairs. So there's a walk back here. So to go back to your statements at the outset, they're hearing the pushback. They're hearing the pushback in large measure because of your quotes in here. So powerful stuff, and thank you for helping get that word out, and we appreciate being able to do that as well. I'd like you to comment on that, and then we'll move on to the Giffords' strange definition of gun rights support. Unbelievable.
Listen, I'm glad that the FBI issued that statement. I don't know, Mark, I'm one of those old-fashioned guys, and I'm sorry. It doesn't bother me. It would have been nice to have heard maybe a little bit more of a mea culpa because, again, we know what Kash Patel said. Kash Patel says nobody brings a gun to a protest if they're planning on being peaceful.
Right.
Second statement, much better than the first. And, as long as we don't hear anything else along those lines, listen, I mean, you mentioned earlier, would you rather have Kamala Harris? And absolutely not. As long as it stays a communications failure and it doesn't become a policy failure, we'll be frustrated, and I think we'll move on, right?
We have to. What's the alternative? I don't see it. There is no alternative. This is what we have. And guys, trust me when I tell you this. You'd rather have this and hear these conversations and have them misspeak and make mistakes than have them coming after your rights all day long. Exactly what they're doing in Virginia is what you would have seen from the Kamala Harris regime on steroids at the federal level. So let's kind of remember that, okay? Yeah, we call it out when we see it. We get them to walk it back. That's what we do. And Cam, you and I both know people who have the ear of the White House, okay? That would not have happened in a Kamala Harris regime. It's that simple. So keep that in mind. Let's go to Giffords' strange definition of the Second Amendment. I've been covering this all week. To me, this is just utterly mind-boggling. And my take on this, Cam, is that they have painted themselves in a box with their gun grabbing over the years. I believe this is a sign of trouble for these organizations, because the Giffords organization is out now defending Second Amendment rights and basically stating, ladies and gentlemen, but those rights mean nothing if the government can infringe on those fundamental rights. This is coming from Giffords. What gives here?
So I think one of the things that's happening is the gun control lobby is freaking out that the left is discovering the Second Amendment. This is, I think, an existential crisis, right? There was actually a column at Bloomberg over the weekend. The right's gun obsession is catching on with the left. Of course, that's how Bloomberg phrases it, right? And how Bloomberg phrases it. But listen, the base of support for the gun control lobby is found, I would argue, almost exclusively on the left. If the left, by and large, decides, hey, you know what? I want a gun too, where does that leave the gun control lobby? So, and they've known this, right? I mean, this is why Every Time for Gun Safety is purporting to offer gun training. And it's why, you got the Giffords Gun Owners for Safety. But as you say, their definition of the Second Amendment is not what you and I would consider it. So they had this tweet, Giffords Gun Owners for Safety believe the Second Amendment is a fundamental right. They said, but that right is meaningless if the government can violate without consequences. Well, yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. But I don't think Giffords really believes that, right? So in this video of these, supposed gun owners for gun control, they say the First Amendment is, quote, the ability to peacefully assemble. But they describe the Second Amendment as the right to legally possess a firearm in accordance with state law. Now, shall not be infringed is a whole lot simpler and shorter, and actually, what's in the text of the Second Amendment. But if this is the right to legally possess a firearm in accordance with state law, well, if state law says you've got to have a justifiable reason to carry that firearm, if state law says you can't have more than 10 rounds in your magazine, if state law says you can't own that gun because they think it's unusually dangerous, then what right is being protected here? If the state gets to define it down to nothing,
right,
it's not a right at all. It's a privilege.
Well, what they're saying is, let's call it a privilege. They're calling it a privilege without calling it a privilege. And what I find interesting is exactly what your take on this was, which is what I talked about all week on the Daily Defense, and we'll probably wind up talking about it this week coming up as well, ladies and gentlemen. As you said, the left has discovered, the organizations have discovered that their base. Now, one thing that we have to put into perspective here, Cam, is we've talked about it for years. The Second Amendment was put in place by our founders so that we could protect ourselves from a tyrannical government. These people believe they're living under tyrannical government in Trump. They don't think like you do, ladies and gentlemen, and I will defend their right to bear arms just like I will defend your right to bear arms. It is our right as Americans, right, left, center, green, red, black, blue, it doesn't matter. I don't care who you are, you have a right to keep and bear arms. Whatever reason you believe, you have a right to keep and bear arms. Well, the Giffords organizations and Every Town and the rest of them are now discovering, ruh-roh, our people believe it's a tyrannical government, and now we're finding ourselves on the wrong side of our own base. We can't lose this base. So they pull this nonsense, and they give themselves plausible deniability by doing what you just pointed out, which is underneath Cam's piece. If you're watching on your screens, you can see it. Speaker in the video identifies First Amendment right, then adds in accordance with state law to the mention. The Second Amendment has no language about state law limitations or restrictions. Cam, I'll give you the last 30 seconds because this is a joke, man. Take it away.
Well, it is a joke, and listen, I don't think your audience is susceptible to this kind of spin from the gun control groups, but our friends and our neighbors might be, right? People who are not Second Amendment advocates, and so again, this is another. It's a teachable moment for us to talk to our friends and family and our neighbors about what the Second Amendment really is all about. And it is a right for everybody, including those who we, don't agree with politically.
We disagree with you. You're absolutely correct. Cam Edwards, ladies and gentlemen, bearingarms.com and Cam and Company. I'll be on Cam and Company tomorrow. Make sure to tune in. We always have a great time. Cam Edwards, thank you, brother. Love you. You make the show so much fun whenever you're on it. Looking forward to doing your show tomorrow. Guys, we'll be back right after the break. Don't go away.
All right,
Blackout Coffee. Visit them at blackoutcoffee.com/AAR. Grab that discount and free shipping. Welcome back to the show. Yeah, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Walters filling your prescription for freedom today and every day. We'll be doing this again tomorrow from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time. Welcome back inside the Car Firearms Group studios with me. It's all presented to you by the National Rifle Association and Patriot Mobile Command Center. Fired up for you. The on-air lights are going. So we've got a guest coming in right now that was unscheduled, that was able to join us at the last moment. AWR Hawkins could not be with us at the last second because he has found himself on a writing assignment. That is his number one responsibility, and we appreciate that very much. Now, Dr. John Lott jumps in with us at the last second. John, welcome to the program, my friend. Thank you. This was so quick. We had Greg call you right away, and I appreciate your accommodation. John, welcome in, brother.
Well, I guess just have to put up with being second fiddle. I'll survive.
Yeah, Greg's laughing in the background. I knew that was going to happen. John, I was talking with Cam Edwards about the Giffords organization, and the headline over at bearingarms.com says it all, and I really want to get your thoughts on this. Giffords' strange definition of the Second Amendment. They put a tweet out, X, formerly known as Twitter. Giffords Gun Owners for Safety believes that a Second Amendment is a fundamental right, but that right is meaningless if the government can violate it without consequences. We're calling on Congress for a full, transparent investigation and accountability. Of course, talking about the Alex Preddy shooting by the Border Patrol agent during the ICE law enforcement activity in Minneapolis last week. John, what do you make of something like that?
It's a strange. I mean, it's Preddy violated all sorts of rules with regard to concealed carry. I have no problem with somebody carrying a gun in public. Obviously, my work has dealt a lot with that. I have no problem somebody carrying a gun at a protest. I know there's some states that outlaw doing that, but my guess is eventually the U.S. Supreme Court will strike down those laws. But that's one thing, for a law-abiding citizen to properly carry a gun, concealed or whatever, at a protest. Another thing, though, for the individual to interfere with law enforcement. It's another thing for him to get into a struggle with law enforcement. Obviously, there's video from earlier where Preddy had assaulted police, had damaged government property, had committed felonies. He's lucky that he wasn't arrested at those times. My guess is if he had been arrested, there's a reasonable chance that he'd still be alive today. That's right. And then on top of all that, if you get orders from the police, follow those orders. And the thing, people watch these videos and they have them in slow motion and they watch them over and over again in order to try to figure out what's going on. A police officer just doesn't have that luxury. A police officer in those situations, has to make split-second decisions. There are people out there who threaten them. My guess is, I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if they'd already identified Preddy as somebody who had assaulted officers in the past.
Yeah. You
see that he's armed there, and I don't blame them for being, scared and having to do it. Look, we have something like a 1,347% increase in assaults on ICE officers last year compared to 2024. We have like an 8,000% increase in death threats against them. We have a 3,200% increase in vehicle assaults against them. You look at the Renee Good situation. She wasn't armed with a gun, but she was armed with a vehicle. The officer who was hit and had to go to the hospital, and the hospital records indicate that he had internal bleeding, and surely his own video there indicates that he was hit. That officer had been struck and dragged by a vehicle 6 months earlier and required 33 stitches. So, it's understandable why he would be worried about somebody driving a vehicle into them. In her case, they could have arrested her multiple times that day. They could have arrested her in the preceding week when she was interfering. Finally, I guess they had enough. One of the officers went up to the side of the vehicle, asked her to get out, and that they were going to arrest her. And at that point, in order to evade arrest, she drove forward and struck the officer that was there. That's a crime to go and evade arrest that's there. So, it's just amazing how they want to go with this narrative now to protect the rights of gun owners. They don't care about the rights of gun owners. No. They just want to try to use this in order to make political points against an administration which has been the most pro self-defense administration in my lifetime, by far. No one has been as pro self-defense as Trump has been, in terms of the judges that he's appointed, in terms of what's happening at the Department of Justice. And it's only my own belief is that the only reason why they push this now is because they want to try to hurt what is the most pro self-defense administration.
Yeah, I think it's twofold, John.
I think they can.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of what you just said, and it's also a combination of this discovery that a lot of people on their side, their base, is, I don't want to say discovering or rediscovering. There's a lot of Democrats and liberals that own guns, but there's now a larger call for that. So this is a big, big part of their base. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that it's the Democrat Party who they're aligned with, who is the party of gun grabbers. So it would make sense that they're thinking to themselves, ruh-roh, we've got a lot of people on our base that are screaming for gun rights because they think differently than we do. Look, and they have a right to feel the way they feel. A lot of these folks feel, hey, this is a tyrannical government I'm living in. I want to be armed.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, have there been gun purchases by liberals and Democrats over the last year or so? Yeah, there has been some. But, I guess I'd have to see something to convince me that Giffords or Brady or Everytown or whatever are now, wanting to go and protect gun rights. I don't, whatever percentage of people on their side of the fence now own guns. I don't think that that's caused them to change. I guess, is it Everytown that's going out and offering to train people on how to use guns and stuff now?
Yeah, their training's a joke.
That are doing that.
It's a joke. In fact,
I'm sure it is. But they want to try to make themselves come across as a moderate image there. And look, I talked to these guys in green rooms and other things over the years. I had a debate at the University of Connecticut last year with somebody from the Giffords campaign. I know these guys pretty well, and I just don't believe any of them for a second. The head of the Brady campaign, I've debated her before. These guys are diehard people in terms of wanting to get rid of guns, not trying to go and preserve people's rights. And I believe that the only reason, unfortunately, maybe I'm wrong, but my guess is the only reason why they want to go and push this particular line right now is that they think that they can hurt the Trump administration. If they can hurt the Trump administration and get Democrats elected to the House and Senate this next year, they're going to be able to stop a lot of what Trump wants to do in order to protect people's rights to self-defense.
Yeah, let me take us to the break with this. As I'm listening to you, I'm tying together, again, what I was talking about with Cam in the previous two segments, John, and that is the Trump administration's statements from Kristi Noem and Kash Patel and Trump himself. You can't bring a gun to a protest, et cetera. And, of course, the pro-rights organizations jumped all over that. And I think this might be an attempt by the Giffords organization and the left, the gun grabbers, to take advantage of that in the context that you just mentioned. And I think that's brilliant analysis. I think you're right. I do not believe you're wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, one more segment to go with Dr. John Lott. We appreciate him being here on what is probably the shortest notice ever on this broadcast in 18 years. John, we appreciate it. CrimeResearch.org. Support him. We'll be back with John. One more segment to go in hour one. Don't go away. This segment is brought to you by Attorneys on Retainer. Get the only self-defense program for gun owners backed by a real law firm, the Attorneys for Freedom. Visit them online at attorneysonretainer.us. Welcome back. Yeah, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Armed American Radio here in the CZ Car Firearms Group studio. CZ Mike lit up for you here at the Patriot Mobile Ranch. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching me on your television screens or you're watching me on your devices or any of that fun stuff, I appreciate that very much, but I'm holding up my attorneys on retainer card. Please take advantage of this. If you carry a firearm for self-defense, you know that bad things can happen. That's why you carry a firearm for self-defense. But the bad things don't stop. Even if the shoot is good, even if it's clear-cut case of self-defense, there will be an investigation. You are not entitled to an attorney during an investigation, period. Not unless you're charged. And God forbid you're charged, you're going to need the best attorney you can have, the best. And it's attorneys on retainer, all part of the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. Ladies and gentlemen, please take advantage of this. You can find it at attorneysonretainer.us/AAR. And when you sign up, as every member of my family has, and a lot of my extended family, neighbors, friends, etc., all have attorneys on retainer. It's $37 a month. It'll save you $25 off the sign-up fee. Please, please, please take advantage of this. It is a no-brainer. Please. attorneysonretainer.us/AAR. Read the testimonials, watch the videos, and do yourself a solid. Sleep better tonight, because if you wait and it happens to you, it is too late if you haven't already done it, and it's going to bankrupt you. Please take advantage of it. You can find them and all of our great partners, including Blackout Coffee. If you're watching on your devices and screens, you can see the QR code up there. Take advantage of it. blackoutcoffee.com/AAR. All of our partners, including Bud's Gun Shop, they're all there for you at armedamericanradio.com. Dr. Lott, welcome back in. During the break, I'm continuing to look at some of these things. I'm trying to tie these things together that we're talking about here. What's your take, John, on Kristi Noem's statements about how you can't carry a gun at a protest? Now, Trump, we know, my take on Trump is he talks off the cuff. If we don't know that by now, we're not really paying attention. I don't think Trump meant what he said. I think Trump was just saying, guys, you can't do that. You can't do that, meaning go to a protest and then interject yourself in law enforcement. I think that's what Trump was saying. But Kash Patel and Kristi Noem made it pretty clear, and I quoted them in the previous segments with Cam, John, that you cannot do that. Now they're walking that back. And my response to all of the pro-gun organizations, of which I'm a member and a board member of one of them, John, take a breather. Would we rather have a Kamala Harris? No. Let's call them out for the mistakes they made. They're now walking it back, explaining themselves. And while I don't like what they said, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. What's the alternative? Kamala Harris regime, John? I'd really like your thoughts on what they said and the fact that they're walking it back now.
I think the reaction from people on the pro-self-defense side is just silly. Look, people make mistakes. You have things that are happening quickly, and not everybody has everything memorized with regard to the rules. The question is, where do they come down eventually? And I know I said this in the first segment, but there's never been an administration that has been as pro-self-defense as the Trump administration has been, either this time or the first term. How many presidents do you know have spoken out against gun-free zones and done so multiple times?
Yeah, none.
I don't know of anybody. I don't know of any administration that spoke out against gun-free zones. And so, other than Trump, and he himself has spoken out against them. And the thing is, so people, something bad happens, they have a reaction, and look, this guy, Preddy, was a real jerk. Mm-hmm. You see him assaulting police, you see him damaging government property. As you and I said, he's lucky he didn't get arrested. He goes and interferes with law enforcement. He goes and disobeys direct orders. He fights them when they're trying to arrest him. The thing is, if you believe the police have done something wrong, then when you get to court, make your case that they did something wrong. But when you're actually out in the field, you obey the orders of police. Look, I have people, when I put up Facebook posts or X posts on this stuff, I get grief for the stuff I'm saying. To be honest, I'm not even sure whether they're anti-gun people who are just trying to go and make a debate here. But, the bottom line isn't necessarily what people go and say in the heat of the moment, but what they say after they look into things and thought about things. And you can't expect everybody to know all the law about everything that's there. But I do think Kristi Noem was right about some things. I think this guy was looking for no good. I mean, if you look at the video from a week before, he was egging on ICE officers to assault him.
He was begging.
He wanted them to assault him.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know what the deal is, but it seems to me that, I'm not surprised that this guy ended up getting shot. Nobody wants to get shot. Nobody wants to get shot, whether it's Renee Good, who's driving her car into an ICE agent, or Preddy, who was disobeying orders and interfering and had a gun. But look, if you have a gun in that situation, ICE agents, they have legitimate concerns for their life. If you go to a concealed carry class, and what are they going to tell you if you get pulled over for speeding?
Right.
You'll tell them, hopefully, that you have a gun in the car, and then you follow orders. If the guy tells you keep your hands on the steering wheel, you keep your hands on the steering wheel. You don't go reaching for your gun at that point, even if had the best of intentions in the galaxy. You follow the orders that the officer has. They don't know whether you're a good person or a bad person. I will say this. I have talked to a number of police in many states. If they go and put your license plate through their computer, they can go and see whether or not you're a concealed carry permit holder. And officers that I talk to tell me that they're relieved to see that, because then they know how incredibly law-abiding that person's likely to be. But officers get shot, they get killed, they get hit by cars, and in the second or two that they have to make decisions there, you can't second guess them. And that's my guess is kind of what was going through the minds of the people who were making comments on this. But look, the proof's in the pudding. Who are they putting on the courts as judges? Look at the cases that the administration is bringing. They just brought a case against Massachusetts. They've brought cases against Los Angeles for delaying giving out concealed carry permits. Harmy Dillon, if you're somebody who cares about individual right to self-defense, it's hard to think of somebody who is more on your side than Harmy Dillon. And you just had the Hawaii Wilford v. Lopez case, and the administration argued in the Supreme Court, put its weight behind trying to get these so-called vampire rules that Hawaii and 4 other states have. Get them struck down.
It's like this, John. I guess you can't please everybody no matter what. But some of the comments I'm seeing...
Well, they need to grow up.
They do need to grow up. And some of the comments I'm seeing from folks who like to call themselves conservatives that are jumping all over ICE, that are just not seeing exactly what you just said. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth does not suffer fools. Facts don't suffer fools, ladies and gentlemen. John Lott, crimeresearch.org. Thank you so much for being here on very, very short notice. That was a record for us today in 18 years. John, we appreciate it.
Usually I have to prepare for hours.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Crimeresearch.org.
All right, take care.
Thank you, Dr. Lott. We appreciate it so much. Boy, that was great. Thanks, John, for jumping in here. Crimeresearch.org, ladies and gentlemen. Please support John and all of his amazing work over there. He speaks the truth. Armed American Radio comes back with the great reporter from Real America's Voice, Neil McCabe, right after the break. Don't go away. 6 minutes after on the flip side.
You just filled your prescription for freedom.
With Mark Walters, presented by the National Rifle Association.
The National Rifle Association.
On the Armed American Radio Network.